sort of spurred me to start this machine learning workshop, which is the first link in the Etherpad. And that's sort of built around the intuition behind all of machine learning in general, like what all these different algorithms, but what are they all trying to do? They're all on some level trying to do the same thing, but just different ways of doing it. So I try to teach it that way, and I try to teach it in a way that's not too intimidating. I think the material of machine learning is really easy to get very, very intimidated by it, especially because if you start writing papers and stuff, and you don't have a very strong mathematical background, it's just very, very off-putting. So I try to also build these mathematical intuitions in a way that doesn't just rely on a lot of symbols that people may be unfamiliar with, and doesn't assume too much on the mathematical background. And then the other half of the workshop that I try to do is sort of this like duality in the conversations around machine learning. On one hand, you kind of people who are teaching these techniques and so on, and then on the other hand, you have all this discussion about what are the sort of social and political implications of machine learning and its sort of ever-increasing ubiquity and so on. So the workshop, the way I try to teach it, I try to show this is how machine learning can be used in terms of like, for example, like the way China's government uses it, they use it for internet censorship, and now more recently they're using it for things like credit scores that have like a political tint to them. And so I try to present the algorithms in that context that they do have material effects on the world, and then not just these sort of abstract ways of solving like problems. And then other than the AI nodes, that's a more comprehensive set of skills that I released around learning not only about machine learning, but machine learning and artificial intelligence more broadly. And that's just sort of accumulation over a few years of taking a lot of courses and stuff. And I wanted to make that sort of like an end-to-end, ideally, like class, I guess, for just like learning everything that you need to know about machine learning and AI. Yeah, that's about it. I guess that's about it for the projects that I have around teaching machine learning. Answer some of the questions.
All right, cool. Yeah. Feel free to address the questions. Sorry, I just wanted to say that.
So the first question, what are applications for machine learning and science for digital humanities? I guess they're kind of like endless possibilities and endless applications. I mean, it's such a broad set of techniques. It's just like basically a way of, as Aurelia said, like recognizing patterns. And so that can be used to predict new values or things like AlphaGo happened fairly recently, where a machine beat the world's best Go player at Go, and that's something that people didn't think would happen for another 10 years. But those kinds of applications to a machine is sort of actually making decisions, planning, and doing this kind of strategic thinking. That's really an interesting thing. I know there are a lot of applications across over there with medicine, diagnoses and stuff. What else? I know a lot of people using it for like genome stuff. I don't know. I'm not too familiar with these fields myself, so I don't know. I'm sure someone else can jump in. Next question is, how hard is it to get started with this? I think it's not too bad right now. There's just so many resources, like tutorials and courses, stuff is a huge list. I think you have to really sound the Etherpad. Generally, I think the best way to start is you have a problem in mind and just kind of try hand solving it and just search for things that might or might not work, and then go from there. I think I would encourage trying to get some of the theoretical understanding on how these things work, just so that you can develop things on your own and come up with new approaches on your own, and sort of build that confidence around that. maybe given these workshops before and in what context. I have one time I gave it at the meetup called Art Set, where we like a bunch of technology artists with focus sort of around issues around privacy and around security. But then I've also given it, journalists and other sort of groups of people who have some programming familiarity, but maybe don't come from these traditional CS backgrounds. So that's sort of the audience that I have in mind when I designed it. Get a lot of people in my consultation hours asking about machine learning, but their questions are asking me that. How do you advise researchers to use machine learning on how to create I guess it's usually like, I think of a good way to put it in. And I guess with stats, you typically, if you know the sort of function that you want to apply, you know how you want to get to, usually the way that I see machine learning problems and the way that I teach it is that there's some process that's hidden from you, and you want to uncover some sort of function that's described in a model for that process. So there is a lot of overlap between machine learning and statistics. Like a lot of statistical techniques like linear regression fall under that umbrella of machine learning. But I guess generally anything where it's like, it's really, really big, but any hidden process that you want to learn is probably appropriate for machine learning.
Hey, Joe. Can you hear me? Just to add on to that question.
Yeah.
Because we get some questions about machine learning or those approaches because they're always sort of touted as being really, really powerful, but their focus is really on input and output. And like you said, you have these hidden processes that aren't really, they're interpretable to the machine, and you can show that they can classify things correctly at some percentage of the time. But do you think that sort of conflicts with the sort of basic fundamentals of like research and science, and that you want to understand the process versus being able to produce an output that's good?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is. That's a sort of big area of research in neural networks in particular now, because neural networks are so popular, and they're very, very good at a lot of these tasks, but it's very, very hard to understand what's happening under the hood. People can look at sort of how the individual neurons are, like what values are going in and out, but it's very difficult to explain in human terms or represent in sort of a very shareable way, like what it's actually doing. And there are a lot of people now working on ways of better visualizing what's happening at the hidden layer level within the neural networks and stuff, but it's definitely still a really, really big challenge. And I think that's why at least the predominant uses of machine learning has been in contexts like business, because it's not as important. Often you just want like an answer and you don't really care how the answer got there. But yeah, I think it's a major, major challenge for machine learning in the context of science.
Do you think that's something that's solvable? I mean, or is it a fundamental flaw in machine learning itself? Is that you have to sort of accept that you're not going to understand or interpret what the computer is actually doing?
Hey, Francis, I can't really hear you. I don't know about everybody else, but can you maybe like speak closer to the mic or something? It's still kind of weak. At least for me. I don't know. Other people chime in if it's not the case.
I can't hear you, yeah.
Type. No, it's still really weak. I don't know why. Usually the call-in numbers are pretty clear.
Clean my mic on my phone.
Oh, maybe. That was a bit better because I understood what you said. But
Okay. I'll just try to speak up.
okay.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, yeah. So I think I want to say that it is solvable being able to sort of have more interpretable results from machine learning algorithms. There are some algorithms that are better at that, like for instance, linear regression. Many of the simpler ones are very, very easy to interpret, very, very easy to explain what's going on. So perhaps maybe there's a way of doing something like that, or maybe there's some algorithm out there that no one's thought of yet that does that for these more complex, like nonlinear kind of situations, as in with neural networks. I know in some cases, like with convolutional neural networks, which are really popular right now, especially for visual computer vision, object recognition, and so on. Those are a little bit more interpretable because you can kind of see, okay, this hidden layer recognizes, like if you're doing facial recognition, for example, this hidden layer recognizes eyes, this one recognizes the mouth, and so on. And you kind of have these more descriptive, like natural language descriptive descriptions of what's going on, but it's still, I think, hard to sort of formalize it like it's mathematically if that's your goal. Next question, what about training data? In the science world, data generation is still an expensive part of the process. Yeah, that's true, I think, pretty much across the board. This is why, for instance, companies like Google and Facebook are releasing all these machine learning toolkits and stuff, software. And that's mainly because having the sort of algorithm itself doesn't really matter. It just matters having the data. And they have tons of data, so they don't feel bad giving away a lot of stuff for free. In terms of, I think this is still another one of the major sort of roadblocks in learning adoption. I think one solution that many people are working on is just having more open data. So if someone invests a lot of money into collecting data for a certain task, just making that available to other people, that's probably the best solution.
All right. Well, does anyone else have any questions for Francis that aren't listed, I guess? That was great. Thanks so much, Francis.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and feel free to follow along on the pad, or if you don't want to stick around for the rest of the hour, that's okay too. But thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
And we'll go over to some lessons. There's some machine learning tutorials and lessons and ways to kickstart kind of your learning about it if it's accessory to what you're doing currently in your research on line 120 for everybody else. So we'll go over that in a second after the study group updates, but I want to move on to those now because we're about halfway through our call. So if everybody wants to enter their information for their study group below line 108, that would be awesome. There's some folks, I know Colleen, I don't think can be here today, so she just put her updates there, but I think it's really interesting. She's doing a geocoding and visualization study group, and not just like geospatial data and visualization, but geocoding, which is kind of a very interesting part of making maps, right? It's the translation of addresses to or human readable things to machine readable formats, and then mapping them and placing them in the appropriate coordinate system. So it's pretty complex, and I only know of like a few open source approaches to it. Like I think OpenStreetMap has one called Nominatum, and that's kind of weak. It's not really that great, but I know Mapsen is developing one called Peleus that everyone should be able to use to geocode their data. So anyway, she emailed me about that, so I wanted to make sure to mention it. Sarah, do you want to say what your background is and what you put there on line 114?
Sure.
Cool.
I'm new, obviously Sarah, and at Wisconsin-Madison, I run this group called, it's for computational biology, ecology, and evolution, COMBI. And then underneath it, we have a Python study group and an R study group. I think we started maybe a little bit before Mozilla study groups because I didn't find that when I was originally starting it. Otherwise, we'd have a pretty website like you guys have. But yeah, we meet every other week for the Python and R study groups on opposing weeks, and then once a month for the major group. We just had a meeting about pathogen detection, so a bunch of tools for pathogen tracking in microbes. And next month we're going to talk about genome assembly. The R and Python study group has a variety of different topics that we talk about. So you can see it all at the website, I suppose. Is this all people normally say, or did I cover it all?
All right, yeah, that's awesome. And you're welcome to fork the website and convert things to it if you want.
Laziness on my part. I already have a web page.
Fair, that's fair. Well, I'm glad you could join us anyway. And I think you were on the call last time as well, so that's awesome.
Thank you for listen in last time. So
thank you for sticking around and lurking the first time. I'm glad you're here. Rob, what's your update?
We've been keeping pretty consistent meeting sort of informally, and our model is a hacky hour model. So we focus less on the research and more on the tools and the programming. And like I said, it's pretty informal. So every time we meet, someone has a topic that they're either interested in or that they've been using in their research. Like for instance, last week we talked about Apache Spark. People were interested in parallel processing, especially in the context of Python. So maybe that could help people with their research. This semester, we're hitting finals week, and that stuff's coming up. So probably take maybe a week or two off, and then we sort of left last time trying to come up with an idea for the global sprint coming up. So I think last year we participated in the global sprint, but we didn't have anything really formulated. We just sort of lurked around and just saw what it was all about. But I'd really like to come up with an idea and make some bigger contributions this year as a group. So we're going to focus on that next time.
Rad, awesome. Okay, cool. Does anyone else have a study group that they want to chime in about, or updates about why they are on the call or what they want to get out of this?
I guess this is my first call.
Oh, yeah,
I'm just curious what the study group update sort of is.
Oh, okay. So normally the study group calls was all for study group leads. And so at the Mozilla Science Lab, we have a program called Study Groups. And it's basically a little website on GitHub that you can fork to your account, and then you can create your own study group, and it gives you a place to plan events via issues and to schedule like meetups with people to study around a topic. And then we have a whole library of lessons that you can also fork, and usually they're like Python and R and some kind of scientific programming or discussion group or journal club or something. So usually we have these calls with study group leads who just want to chat with each other about what they're working on, what kind of lessons they're planning. But recently we kind of opened it up to everybody and made it more about learning and curriculum and who is coming up with cool lessons around a topic and wants to share them, or wants to say like, hey, I have like a 20-minute primer on machine learning that's awesome, and you could give it during a hacky hour at a bar. And that'd be great if we could get those from the community too. So, but we have a section for study group updates in case people have big updates about what they're working on, or are nervous about hosting an event, or need support and tweeting about a particular event. But yeah, that's usually what happens.
That's really cool. I'll check that out. I run weekly just open data help desk hours at our library here.
Oh, cool.
And it's just anyone and everyone. I get staff and people come in and just kind of, a lot of people like, I need help getting Python installed or something like that. And then I also run the Python users group here in town. So and I'm looking for ways to get it more formalized other than just sit around and like type a code for 2 hours together.
Oh, cool.
So
yeah,
that'll be good.
Feel free to make a study group, and website and everything, and it's all open source. And yeah, and the calls are a great place to find new material too, or new instructions. We'll probably do one on Python soon, because that's a very popular language. Maybe some particular aspect of Python or analysis in a particular way, so that it's a bit more
I'm like
focused.
working on getting my, I'm writing an XPath tutorial for
Oh, yeah.
programming historian website, right? That I need to get back to writing. But yeah.
Oh man.
So this is really cool. I really like this model.
Yay, I'm glad. Yeah. Oh wow. I used to work at a library actually, in Brooklyn, and I had to write an XPath tutorial and then another one on XSLT, which I had like 2 big O'Reilly books about, and now they're just like paperweights because I'm like, I'm never gonna use you again. but you're so dense. So yeah, good luck with that. That sounds awesome. Cool. Anyone else? Updates? Comments?
I can hop in.
Yay.
So, yeah, I'm not running a study group as per se. I'm running sort of a, well, bricks and mortar course on open science and reproducible research, which is kind of following a project-based learning curve. So we're just taking students through the whole open science process, starting with modules on data management, R programming, and then using it on a real data set to bring it through to a publication. So I'm happy to chat with anybody who wants to about that, because what I've found is this project-based thing is really good at engaging the students in getting them to say, okay, we need to find out this so that we can take this next step. And so it's almost guided by the students because of the project nature of it.
Cool. Yeah. And Chrissy is also one of our fellows, so she's sometimes on the community calls too. So that's great.
I'm around a lot.
So if nobody has any other updates, we can move on to the lesson.
You guys hear me?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, this is Jeff.
Hey, Jeff.
I've made it back.
Yay, you survived.
Well, and not yet. We'll see. That's a couple days out to see if we all survive the stomach bug. Second round this winter. Hey, Christy, how are you? Sorry I wasn't able to be here to start the MC, but I can give you an update on where we are with.
Please, and I also added to the pad so it looks a little bit more folks.
Yeah. So yeah, we've. I guess the last time I was on the call, we still hadn't. That was back in December, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So we hadn't really started things yet, but so in January we had. To get everybody caught up, we started something called RODR Stats, which is a Mozilla study group, and we're sponsored through the University of Rhode Island. And so we did 2 one-day R workshops in January. Had about 15 or so in each of the workshops, and then since then we've started with regular topic meetings once a month, and then co-working sessions once a month. So we've done 2 of the topic meetings. First one was ggplot, and then the second one we did on dplyr. And then with the co-working sessions, we've had a few stalwarts, but they haven't been a lot of people yet. But so they've gone pretty well. We've had people that have wanted to work with net CDF data, so we had some folks working on that and helping with some automation of tasks and those kinds of things. So it's been slow going, but working out pretty well so far. I guess the biggest challenge that I've had with this is we tried to do it. Rhode Island is a small state, so we were thinking, oh, we'll just do one for the whole state. It is big enough though that it makes for a bit of a challenge on coordinating everything, and so we've had some involvement with folks from Providence College, but to date it's been mostly University of Rhode Island. So things are going well. Our sponsor at the University of Rhode Island is the Coastal Institute, and so they've actually stepped up in a really big way. We're probably going to try to do a data carpentry maybe in the fall or perhaps spring semester. So Coastal Institute's providing funding for that. I may actually get 5 to 10 hours of a grad student to work and help out with some of the coordination. So we have the support. We just got to get the community more involved. I mean, we have a few folks folks that are involved, but it's growing slowly. So
All right, cool.
that's all I've got.
Yeah, feel free to add your updates to the underline 107, I think, where the study group updates are. Yeah, because I'm sure people even would love to see the RODR stats workshop too. That was a pretty nice and robust workshop. So so feel free to link to that.
Right, I'll put that stuff in.
Sweet. All right. So yeah, so machine learning lessons. I put a few things that I thought would be useful, but I'd really love it if people would add stuff too. I did an online MOOC on machine learning that took me way longer than it should have, because MOOCs are always like something that I very ambitiously start and then kind of let die slowly. Slow regrettable deaths that guilt me for forever. But yeah, so the R2D3 visual introduction to machine learning is actually pretty cool. It got a lot of retweets and press a while ago. But it kind of walks through some concepts visually, and it's really it's very interesting. And it also uses a library that converts R to D3. So if you're interested in working with that too, it's pretty cool, and it's a nice little example of what you can do with their library. There's another one explaining Markov chains visually that I like, and interactive neural network graph too that you can kind of play with. I think the best, probably the most useful one for getting started with machine learning, if that's not part of what you currently do, is Line 130. It was a recently sort of published primer that goes through, okay, so you want to start machine learning, these are the things you should know, these are the languages you should be comfortable working in. If you don't know this, take a detour and learn about it here. And if you do know it, move on to section 4. So it's sort of like a choose your own adventure through machine learning. And I think it's actually really useful. One of the what's it called, MOOCs that I did was listed in it, and it is only part of the process. There are several that are listed. A lot of them have classes starting soon, and I think I linked to a few of them, the deep learning one and the data science Coursera and the machine learning class that's linked there. There's just a few different types of approaches. There's also books too that I listed that are pretty nice and useful introductions. And then the tools section, I just threw in a bunch of different examples by language. So if you want to work in a particular language and want to work with machine learning packages, you can check out the ones that are there. And then there's some like kind of fancier things for deep learning and more heavy sort of intelligence work. Although I don't know if I've ever had a problem that required that, or maybe I do, I just don't know that it can be solved through machine learning. So yeah, but feel free to check those out. And I actually really like listening to podcasts just as an introduction to topics, because it's a very low touch way of engaging with a topic and still being conversationally kind of competent in it. So yeah, I really like the Learning Machines podcast and Talking Machines, but there's also an Ethical Machines, which I think Francis put in. So depending on your approach to machines, if you want to learn from them or talk to them or engage with them in ethical ways, you might check those out. Yeah, so feel free to add any other things. I know like we have a few librarians on the call, and I'm sure you have like 1,000 different resources that you know of that are way better than the ones I listed. So feel free to add things, and I'll probably add some sections to the current study group lesson plan or lessons index, which by the way, we're working on kind of retooling over the next 2 weeks. So so stay tuned for that too. I'll bring updates to the next call, of course. But I'm going to add some more machine learning stuff in the next few weeks. So if there's anything you also particularly like that you kind of peruse through this set of links, or different approaches that you think are really good for machine learning, feel free to +1 them or star them or something, because I'll reconsider those as maybe something we could integrate. Any questions or additions? No? I'm sorry, I feel like I talk too much in these calls, and I don't want to be that person that talks too much.
I would also like to recommend pivideo.org, which is going through some changes, but it's sort of like it's semi-curated, but it's an aggregator of all the Python conference talks. And so you can you can search for like machine learning or various packages and like get the videos of the conference talks. And so they're all it's not like just a bunch of 11-year-olds going, we can do machine learning, but it's actual like pure like in theory higher quality than just the average YouTube video because it's all actual refereed conference talks. So
Wow, that sounds awesome.
and they have like 6,000 different videos on there.
Wow. Yeah, please put the link in. I don't know where it would fit or whatever you think. Maybe in the top section because it's at the top, or maybe below podcasts and social groups and stuff, because that sounds awesome. I'd do that. I feel like I go to TED or those other places whenever I need to listen to something in the background, but I'd like to go and learn things. So besides just like inspirational 20-minute talks. Yeah, that sounds awesome. Thank you. Anybody else? No, we're good? Okay, cool. I have 3 announcements before we just buzz through the updates from last call, and then I guess we can close if nobody has any updates. Oh, who's the person? I just saw another caller in the pad, and I'm very excited. On line 201 who said that they can MC the next call. Who's that? Light blue?
That was me.
Oh my God, Rob, yay. I'm so glad. I feel like I ask on every call, does anyone want to MC? And people are like, So I'm really glad you volunteered. Hooray. Okay, so now we can pop up to the top again around line 169, announcements. So we're doing this campus campaign thing that is kind of loosely affiliated with Mozilla clubs and study groups because it has a focus on campuses and university locations. But they have a few different tracks of topics you can campaign about, and mostly it's about engaging students in like web activism while they're at university. So there's a few on privacy and cybersecurity. There's a few on IoT stuff if they want to do more machine-related things or connected devices things. So if you are running a program that reaches out to students, or you think those topics are of interest to your study group, I think we have like one privacy and security study group, but we could use more, I'm sure. Feel free to fill out the form and stuff, and they'll send you like some swag and some cool things to run an event on your campus. So if that's of interest, please, check it out. And then if you're around Brooklyn, New York, who lives near Brooklyn, New York? Nobody? It's a bummer. Well, you can all take a trip because we're having Space Apps and Science Hack Day next at the end of April. So it's this month, actually. No April Fool's joke. It's actually happening. And the website's pretty awesome, only because I helped make it. No, but it's a really cool thing. And if you don't know about Space Apps, it's a thing that NASA runs every year annually across the world. There are different sites, and you can come in and get NASA data to play with. And they have API demos and cool things you can do. I know NASA just released this API called AONNet that is like a connector to their Landsat satellite imagery data. So if you want to work with satellite photos or satellite data, and that can include like biomass information and movements too, because satellites detect those. So if you are interested in that kind of data, then you might want to attend a local Space Apps, and you can find the links on our website, or you can just Google Space Apps 2016 and check out in your area where they might be hosting one. And maybe you could have a hacky hour around it or something else. It's a fun little hack day. And also at the end, supposedly there's a person who's chosen among the projects at every different site to fly to the central location where they all compete for the Space Apps Challenge. And I think the prizes are like monetary. So you could win like $3,000 for your Space Apps hack. So that's cool. And then on just a modest proposal that everybody attend our community call that's coming in 2 weeks. I know we have a lot of calls, and I'm sorry. I hope it isn't too annoying, but the next call is going to be really rad, and it's all these people talking about free and open source assets for different nonprofits and groups, including study groups. So this includes people making free logos and doing free design consulting for nonprofits or universities. It also includes some people who do like project management and event management stuff, just on a consulting basis for free, pro bono work. So yeah, we have a bunch of cool speakers talking about the assets that they're giving away for free. And yeah, you should join. Our fellows will also talk. Christy will be there. So yay, it's a good time. Oh, and thank you for adding more machine learning lessons. I appreciate it. Especially with R, because I feel like my R is not so hot. I'm more of a Python person, but all right. So yeah, updates from last call really quick. Some people asked about event management and teaching tools, so I have a section for that. If you want to add your own event management tools, feel free. I also put in, Xana's on the call, and she wrote this really awesome Teach Like Mozilla manifesto thing. So I put that in the links. I hope that's okay, Xana. You can delete it if it isn't. But
Let me make sure that it's the right one.
okay. Nobody look at it.
Just
Nobody
tweet
click.
it, and I'll put the right one in there. 'Cause I know it changed a bit. And
Okay.
It got modified, so let me just make sure that's the right one. But thanks. Yeah.
Oh yeah, sure. And then Madeline and Arliss also put together a presentation about how to organize events. Madeline couldn't be here today. She runs a study group at the University of Toronto, and it's a very organized study group where they have like elections for treasurer and secretary and vice president, and they are very organized about how they partition tasks and hire teachers, and they have meetups every week. So she's pretty on point about event management. So if you want to check that out, feel free, or reach out to her. She's usually on the calls, but she had a lab meeting today. And then, so, oh yeah, we're working on aggregating all of the events from all the disparate study groups. Hopefully that will come out mid-April, but I'll send an update to everybody when that's ready. We are recording sessions finally, so hopefully this will be a regular thing. We won't post everyone's photos, but we will have your voices and the Etherpad. So anybody who misses the call can catch up. And for the newsletter, that's the last update I wanted to ask about. I try to do a study groups feature every newsletter, and this goes out to all of our newsletter subscribers. So this is a couple hundred people around the world. But I usually have a section for study groups, and I just profile one study group and say what your next meetup is. So if you're interested, please sign up below line 190. It would make me very happy because I wouldn't have to bother you about it and or volunteer you to do it. So yeah, please sign up. And that's all I have. So if anybody has any other updates, let me know before we close. Does anyone have anything else? Nope. I'm also going to be indexing all the past calls. So if you missed things around line 196, I'll have that on every pad every month. So and I'll probably put the themes into last month was R, this is machine learning, and that way you can kind of use it as this compendium of different lesson options outside of our lessons repo. All right, thanks everybody. We can end early. Hooray, Friday. Enjoy your days. Good luck if you're sick. Get over the stomach bugs, and we'll see you next month. Thanks so much. Oh,
I just have one question.
Uh-huh.
Next call, so this is the April call? Yes?
Yes.
And the next one's May 20th?
Yeah, it's very odd. I don't know why this is, but my calendar, at least in my calendar, it auto calculates 4 weeks. And for some reason, it moved it to May 20th, but I thought it was too messy to move it around because so many people have said yes to that event date. So I don't know why it's at that time, but it's a GCal anomaly. But yeah, if that date doesn't work, then we can also still do the first. It's usually the first Friday of every month.
No, I was just wondering.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Okay. All right. Cool. Bye, everybody. Thanks so much for joining. Yay.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.